Hi, it's Lawrence McKendall with Scooberlicious Ultimate, and Professional Ultimate Frisbee is in the air, and I'm excited. Just a few weeks away, the home opener for the San Francisco Flamethrowers is here, and this is our first Flamecast. And to kick off the inaugural Flamecast is my guest and new head coach, Kawaoka. How you doing?
Good.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you're able to come down on such short notice. So, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I know you're not new to coaching, but still, as a new coach for the Flamethrowers, it's kind of nice to have that in your feather in your cap.
Exactly. Definitely excited for the season.
Fantastic. So, you had a tryout. Okay. How many people showed up?
We had 35 players showing up, and it was great for them to see the supporting cast for the team, the ownership, and I think it was a great event for everyone.
So, with what qualities were you looking for?
So we had a variety of players come out, both a lot of players with and without pro experience, but it was great to see people. Everyone brought great disc skills, really good athleticism, and so what it came down to, we were looking for people that were the right mold for the team identity that we're building for the Flamethrowers, but also as a platform for looking at hopefully future Revolver players as well.
Very cool. So, so you're looking for those qualities. What particular drills were you taking them through to sort of show those qualities?
So one of the modifications we did for the pro game was to play 5-on-5 on a regular-sized club ultimate field, and it was really interesting to see where you can't hide on that field. Then we only had 3 cutters and 2 handlers, and the disc was moving very rapidly, but it gave enough of the dynamic where you can see a lot of the help defense aspects come into play.
Very interesting. That's fantastic. 5-on-5 on a full. Wow.
It was a lot of running.
Yeah, it's an understatement. Very cool. That's beautiful. Now, as a coach for the Flamethrowers, but you've coached from UGMO at Cal, you coach with Revolver. What is your coaching style?
I feel like I really like to experiment with ideas and vocabulary. One of my favorite parts of having been a player is the organic growth of a strategy, or even the terminology of this is how we this is what we call a backhand or a trap and things like that. And so having those experiments organically become key strategies for a team is what I look for. It's something that the team chooses to embrace. And so part of it's letting the team embrace those strategies and getting them to see different new ways of looking at the field.
So were these new concepts for some of the players you were looking at?
I think some of the concepts were familiar. Double teaming in pro, all the way to a handler give and go style offense. But I think the reasons why we were doing that were new to a lot of the players, and as the terminology developed during the practice and the tryout, a lot of people enjoyed how that was developing for the team as well.
Interesting. So how would you categorize your coaching style?
Hands-on for the team. I think that in Ultimate we don't have the infrastructure where I can interface one-on-one with everyone. But I do think that everyone knows that I care about every step of the program, all the way from the organizational logistics to what our defensive calls are on game day.
You're that hands-on.
And so
wow.
People know that that's the level of detail I care about, but people know that, so they're always able to help support me.
I like that a lot. Now, you have a budding relationship with Revolver and the Flamethrowers. Now, as it comes to on the field, is this a Flamethrower-esque operation on offense and defense you're going to see in the field, or is it Revolver modified for pro offense defense?
It's a very San Francisco Flamethrower focused, and I think there are a lot of terminology and philosophies and learnings, experience that we're bringing in from the Revolver program, but how it plays out onto the field is going to be very much catered to the pro field, and also just the timing dynamic where we're playing quarters.
Interesting. So it's interesting in you have a Hail Mary aspect to the pro.
Exactly.
Are you running plays? Do you have a play, or you have a series of plays that deal with the end of the quarter, time running out?
There's a series of plays. The timing matters a lot, and if you do that 4 times successfully on offense, that's 4 extra points that can turn the tide of the game.
I like that thought. So looking down some of these questions here. So talk about the league here. Outside of the San Jose Spiders, which is going to be a fine team this year, there's been some big moves between Seattle, San Diego, and LA. Mm-hmm. How do you see the rest of the division outside of the Bay Area stacking up as you approach them as opponents?
I think it's going to be really challenging for us. I think the league is continuing to get stronger, particularly on the West Coast. I think more and more people are excited to play Pro Ultimate as well. And so both the players and the organizations and the coaching staff are getting much more sophisticated, and we need to continue to match that this year.
So where in the game can you be sophisticated? It's a very simple game, but it's interesting when you hear sophistication in applied. So what are you talking about?
I think that it starts with not making mistakes in the organization to start with. Good communication, understanding each player's role, each team member's role, all the way to when it comes down to game time, understanding what our offensive and defensive sets are as well.
Interesting. So can you sort of put a hierarchy who you think the other teams are going to be behind? Because I'm sort of predicting, going on a limb, that you're probably a favorite to win the division. But how do you see the rest of the league stacking up?
I still see...
if you don't mind looking into the crystal ball.
The crystal ball is definitely still murky. We'll see a lot more after week 1. But I think that Seattle's still going to be a very strong team. I think that they're going to bring... they've always brought a lot of enthusiasm to the sport, so I think we need to match that intensity. And then both the San Jose, LA, and San Diego are all growing and bringing players to the fold that have been game changers for them. So we will have a strategy to combat that.
Very cool. And so you've got a fantastic roster. Mm-hmm. How do you balance out the playing time? Mm-hmm. And you have O&D, obviously, lines, but you've got an embarrassment of riches. So how do you taper that? And you've got the club season. So do you sit Bo a lot because you want to be strong in the playoffs or during Revolver games? I mean, how do you balance all that?
I think that it's a lot of aspects to balance, but one of the things is I'm not going to shy away from putting a player like Bo out on the field because he is a great role model for everyone else. How hard he tries, how passionate he is, how excited he's on the sidelines. So those are all things that I need all the other to translate to the other players on the field as well. And so I'm not going to shy away from that, but I also feel that each player on the roster has a role to play, and we're going to use that full roster strength throughout all the games.
Very cool. So the MLU folded. You were a member of the MLU. I love the Dogfish, especially the year you joined was an amazing year for the local Ultimate, and it continued to be during its playing. What type of impact has the MLU made on San Francisco Flamethrowers?
I think that we have one player who's joined us from the MLU ranks, D-Ray Williams, and we're excited to have him. I think that it's put the focus both organizationally within the team, within the community, on the AUDL teams, but I think it allows us to focus all our resources as a community on the AUDL programs as well. And so I think it's unfortunate the MLU programs have folded, but I also think that it allows us to focus on the AUDL programs and make sure that that's successful.
There was some delusion, but that was a great organization, and there was a lot of fine players. So yes, I completely agree. But now all the resources can be focused more. So I agree. Now you've got a number of new players. You talk about D-Ray, Vincenzo, Sawyer, Brett Peterson, Sawyer Thompson, Vincenzo Vitello, and Devon Williams. Just to get all the names right, I apologize if I mispronounce them. Talk to you about how these guys made the cut to make the team. What some of the qualities they embodied?
So at tryouts, we're hoping for table stakes where people can throw, people can catch, they're showing athleticism. But I think what really matters is how that translates to and infects the other players' enthusiasm for the game. When you show a passion and excitement for your teammates and how their play affects others, I think that those were the kinds of aspects that all those players brought. A lot of them have shown their big play abilities in past AUDL seasons and MLU seasons, and we saw that play out in the tryouts as well. So we're excited to have all of them.
I wish I'd seen those tryouts. 5-on-5 on a full field. That's crazy.
Yep.
I love it. That's great. So do you see these guys? So were these predominantly, besides just being awesome athletes, having an aptitude for the game and disc skills, do you see these guys shaking out as O or D line? Who you picked up?
I think they're a combination of both, and I think we're going to experiment throughout the season. But for example, D-Ray's clearly a D player. He loves. He has a nose for the disc, always laying out and getting highlight reel grabs. So we're excited to have him on the D line, and the other players have a good mix of skills, and so we're going to see where they fit in throughout the season.
Nice. So there was an article by Nina Horowitz that was on a blog post on Flamethrowers website. Nicely done, Nina. And you mentioned that the AUDL is in its infancy and there's an unrivaled amount of space for new ideas and tactics to be developed. So looking at O and D, how do you see that playing out applied to the O-line?
That's right. So starting with offense, I think that there are some philosophies that we're going to bring in from the Revolver program, but we're going to apply it differently because the AUDL field is very different. It's not as linear as the club programs, and so we can use the lateral space more effectively, and also use our handlers to attack the spaces a lot more aggressively than we have in the club programs with the Revolver.
So along the same lines of offense, you mentioned that in the past, Flamethrower offense had a tendency to go static or stagnant, I should say. What things are you going to put into place to minimize that from happening or eliminating that ideally?
Exactly. I think it's, sometimes you have way too many cuts and you can't throw to anyone, and sometimes you have not enough cuts at all to throw to anyone. And part of that's going to come out with chemistry. We need to build a little bit of chemistry to understand who throws to who the best. But I also think that with the right personnel, with the right people around the disc, they're going to attack the spaces so that they're attacking without a mark, or the mark's in a very compromised situation, and the cutters will very naturally flow into the attacking spaces and score goals.
That's an awesome response. It makes complete sense, absolutely. And always a challenge to try to do that because when offenses go stagnant, I mean, you can go through your dump set, but it's nice when you don't have that. It's just fluid all the way. You know how to attack. And I've seen you guys do it lots of times, but consistently, that'd be great if you're able to do that. So how does those new tactics and strategy apply to the defense?
So for me, a lot of the way that the space is attacked and some of the rule differences in AUDL are new to me, but I'm really excited to explore that. And so we're hoping to recognize that there's a lot of space for throwers to throw it into, but that also allows a lot of space for our athletes to track down a deep ball, for example, and get a help D, as well as shrink the space that's around the thrower so that they're given some of the spaces that we are baiting and poaching into, so that those throws are going to be predictable and we can attack those and get Ds on.
Very cool. Is part of your D junk? I mean, if that makes sense. Can you quantify what I mean by junk, your junk D?
I think that it's more recognizing that it is Team D. So more so than junk, I think we're going to focus on the fact that we need to help each other play D, where each player is almost defending two players. And so if we recognize that, and we're recognizing the players or the offensive players that are in an attacking situation and in the most dangerous situations, but there's two players keeping an eye on those players and those spaces, I think we'll be better set to play D. So it's more of a help and recognize you're playing Team D concept than junk.
Great. And exactly, I think it's a misnomer, but thank you for clarifying that. That's awesome. So, just looking at the time, making sure we're on time here. Now, this first game is going to be a lot of students there. So we talked about a couple questions asked. So besides the ultimate question that we're going to get to, what are some of the tips that you can give as a pro coach and you're talking to, or as a coach on various levels? How would you talk to a high school team how to approach the game?
I think that the skills of catching and throwing can't be replaced, and so you can you need to hit the track, you need to get stronger and work on your agility, but nothing replaces disc skills. That includes catching, and that comes through mental exercise and focus. Catching is if you can catch the frisbee, you have a role to play on any team.
Exactly. Good. Fantastic. I'm glad you said that, because it's what creates the highlights. It makes the thing go, and if you can catch crappy handler throws, that's great. That's even good. But go ahead.
And catching basic skills like catching help generate the momentum for your career as well. As a young player, you want to be positively reinforced, and you want others to keep throwing it to you. And so if you can show that you're the best catcher on the team, the frisbee is going to come your way.
Great. So on that note, how do you get better besides just catching? How do you set up situations where you can improve? The more catching, like I almost say Odell Beckham sort of catches.
I think that in my mind, you're trying to create this space where,
excuse me, Matthew Crawford type catches. So go ahead, because he's on the line. Okay, go ahead.
Nice, perfect. But I think one of the things that you need to help your teammates recognize is that your sphere of influence as a receiver is not just the length of your arm or the length of your torso. If you can show that you can catch extended with your arms extended while jumping, while diving, that's going to be a key aspect for trust, for your creating trust with your teammates.
Great. That's fantastic. Great response. So, got some business offline here. Just a second. So our last question is: with so many students ideally going to be in attendance, what do you want them to be watching in the game? Are there facets of the game you want to be aware of? What's that one key area you want them to really key in on?
I think that it'll be really good if they recognize the intensity and the passion that the sideline players are bringing to support their teammates. I don't know if it doesn't play out as a direct stat line when you look at the scoreboard or look at the stat sheet at the end of the day, but those are the people that are giving you the encouragement and the energy and, again, the positive reinforcement to make the plays and support your team.
Yeah, that's great. And those are intangibles that pay dividends down the line. And you'll know coming off the field if you drop a disc or someone burns you deep and you're greeted by a positive team going, rub it off, drop it, go out, you're on, it's great. You feel positive as opposed to, what were you doing, what were you thinking? So yeah, a positive team aspect. And I think we saw the same video with Gino Ariama.
That's right.
And if you get a chance to see the video, he's the head coach of the women's basketball team for Connecticut. An amazing video. It's really sort of dovetails on what Yo's talking about. So thank you very much. In just a few weeks, April 1st, is the home opener for the San Francisco Flamethrowers, and the organization's encouraging middle school, high school, and college players to come to the game. And if you use Ultimate Student as a discount code, you can get in for free. And that's at 6 o'clock, Laney College. And it's going to be a great game between the San Jose Spiders and the San Francisco Flamethrowers. So for Scooberlicious Ultimate, I'm Lawrence McKendall. I'd like to thank my guest, Yo Kawaoka, and we'll see you down the line. Thanks for joining us.